like the power. But the question is, what is the power? You've got to discover what controls the system to really get through all the layers if you're going to try to build a better civilization and a future for humanity. Because we know the establishment that's taken control certainly does not even see humanity in their future. And coming up later in the hour, I'll talk about the technocracy with Professor Griff, one of the founding members of one of the most legendary and still popular, one of the most popular hip-hop / rap groups out there, Public Enemy, pgriff.info, P and then Griff for Professor Griff.info. And he's going to be with us for the hour today to take phone calls. And I want to give the number out if you specifically have a question. It can be all over the map. That's what I love about the wild card aspect of this. We don't screen your calls. In fact, that's why people call in on whatever issue they want. But when I do say it's for a guest, it's for the guest. Address your question to him. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231 today. And he joins us. Of course, many of you also know him, even if you're not a connoisseur of some of the better hip-hop and rap out there, like I've been growing up in Dallas, Texas. Then you know him from the Obama deception that we were producing before Obama even got into office. And he says, just because you get a black president, people think everything's going to be all right. Well, no, it's not going to be all right. Just like a lot of conservatives think you get Bush in, he's going to save you, and he runs over you. Because it's not about that. It's about total control. They're now coming out, we're going to talk about this, with computers that are going to write the news articles and fully replace humans. Pre-programmed with an official story that then they write in different variations. That's why the press corps won't even be needed. A virtual president, all of it. So now it won't be a president reading off a globalist written teleprompter. It will be a virtual computer program of the president, where the president won't have to travel. See, the new carbon tax will be the global prison where you can't travel anywhere. You have to get authorizations to travel. This is a nightmare. A nightmare, and they want us all fighting with each other over race, religion, all this stuff. And when they get people fighting over that, it becomes real. Even if you don't want to hate somebody, they hate you because of your religion or your race or what you look like or where you came from. So how do you transcend that? How do you get past the divide and conquer? Because if we don't do that, we're dead. It's the eugenics program, the extermination program. Professor Griff, out of the gates, what do you want to talk about first today before we go to these phone calls? What is front and center in your mind and your deep research and all the books you've got coming out that are so popular that are available, I should add, at pgriff.info?
First, I want to say thank you for having me on once again. As promised, we're back once again for the second time, and I want to thank your listeners since the last time. The support, I received some things in the mail from some people, some further information, and it's a beautiful thing. So once again, thanks for having me. But the thing that's on my mind, I received some information about a gentleman in the so-called in hip-hop or rap. Now, this particular gentleman, he murdered someone simply because he thought this person that he murdered was his friend. And he thought if he murdered his friend, that it would kind of appease the quote-unquote Illuminati, and he would be accepted in the Illuminati because he thought that this person would be his blood human sacrifice. Now, this disturbed me, so I said to myself, what is it that I'm not saying to make this very, very clear about the Illuminati being 13 bloodlines? So I went back into the book, and I said to myself, maybe I need to talk to Alex about the 21 goals of the Illuminati, as mentioned in Dr. John Coleman's book, The Committee of 300.
And by the way, he laid out their whole plan. He was in MI6. I think he's even still alive, but he's hard to get on. He's been ill. We need to get Dr. Coleman back on. Is he still alive?
Yes, he is.
Guys, get him on immediately. I keep forgetting. He's really hard to get on. He hadn't been on in about 5 years. But get him on immediately. Yes, let's go over from an MI6 guy who 20 years ago laid out everything. I mean, I've got to say, no one has, and there's so many great people like him that you just forget about because they're not out front and center. Break down what he says their 21 goals are.
Number one, real quick. Number one is to establish a one-world government, new world order, with a unified church and a monetary system. Under the direction of this one-world government, they began to set up its church back between 20s, and the 30s. Now, this is something that they would control. Now, they would set up a church to body and channel these particular beliefs that they would come up with. And these are non-religious beliefs. That's number one. Number two, to bring about the utter destruction of all national identity and national pride. And chime in anytime you would like, which was the primary consideration if the concept of the one world government, the New World Order, was to work. So these things go hand in hand to establish a unified church and a monetary system, and to break down national identity. This gives birth to this implantable biomicrochip that everyone on the planet, walking, living, breathing, have to accept the chip.
And now they openly say they want the troops, and the troops are already getting them, by the way, the special forces. All of this that was unbelievable 10 years ago is now in our face. Please continue.
Exactly. Number three, to engineer and bring about the destruction of religion, and more especially the Christian religion, with one exception, their own creation, as mentioned above. Number four, to establish the ability to control each and every person through means of mind control and what Zbigniew Brzezinski called technotronics, I believe, which would create human-like robots and a system of terror which would make these things come about and be acceptable by the people via the mind control. You walk through Newark Liberty Airport, you'll hear robots talking to you, giving you directions.
And they're just conditioning you and getting you ready. Exactly.
Exactly. So softening you up, making you, what's the word I want to use, more pliant, so to speak, to get you to accept instructions and authority from robots. Number five, to bring about the end of all industrialization and the production of nuclear-generated electric power.
By the way, he wrote this more than 20 years ago in one of his first books. And look, the post-industrial zero-growth society. See that? Keep going.
Yes, exactly. Now, basically, what they're doing is, 20 years ago, you would almost think that, okay, if these things didn't take place, what's the problem? Well, you and I both know that the men that are operating behind the scenes call themselves men of towardness. And they will pass this agenda down to the next generation if they don't succeed in their particular lifetime.
They never give up.
Right, exactly. They don't. The agenda does not stop. If you and I go on vacation to catch a little sun somewhere, if they do this, the machine world keeps going. They wanted to bring this into fruition through NAFTA and other organizations and other programs that they have already set in motion. So if you look at the war on terror, when it talks about destroying the Taliban and other organizations that they helped create, it says in this particular document that the U.S., in the wake of industrial destruction, will either become opium, heroin, or cocaine addicts. This is what they are doing right now, unbeknownst to the troops that are fighting. Now, I know the government is listening, so we don't want to get charged with sedition. We're reading a document put out 20 years ago by Dr. John Coleman in the book, The Story of the Committee of 300. Number 6, to encourage and eventually legalize the use of drugs and make pornography an art form. My question is, does life imitate art, or does art imitate life? If you're going to make pornography an art form, and then make it an art form to whom? Your little babies, my little babies? How does that work?
It was like a nightmare. I was down in Galveston 2 weeks ago on a vacation, and the last day I was there, a convention of cheerleaders came, but it was little kids at a competition, and there were like 10-year-olds dressed like prostitutes everywhere, and they were being rude to my daughters because they thought they were there for the competition. And I mean, it was freaking me out. In fact, we even came home a day early. I mean, people are training their daughters to be whores.
Wow. Number 7, to bring about depopulation of large cities according to the trial run carried out by Pol Pot's regime in Cambodia. And basically it says here, it's interesting to note that Pol Pot's genocidal plans were drawn up in the U.S. by one of the Club of Rome's Research Foundation and overseen by Thomas Indias. Now, this is very critical. A lot lot of these things are done right from the United States of America. Number 8, to suppress all scientific development except for those deemed beneficial by the Illuminati. So if that is true, then we can roll our minds back just a few years ago to them, not a few years ago, in and around the mid-'80s, when the electric car was given birth to, and they sat on the electric car. Simply because the multinational corporations that control the oil and the gas did not want the electric car to hit the streets just yet. So here we are, 2011, 12, and 13, just now seeing the electric car. You see, they killed the electric car because maybe it gets 85 miles per gallon, so to speak, and they didn't want that on the streets yet.
Absolutely. We've got to go get...
On car lots, there are millions of gas-guzzling trucks and cars that are sitting there.
Professor Griff's our guest. Stay there, sir. We're going to come back, finish up with the goals, and then go to your phone calls with Professor Griff, one of the founders of Public Enemy, their Minister of Information, laying it out and reminding me about Dr. John Coleman. Wow.
I'm Darren McBreen, and these are some of the new items that are available now at InfoWarsShop.com. Alert the public to Obama's blatant abuse of power with the new Obama t-shirt. Obama's Joker face on the front and come and take it on the back. It's time to publicly call him out for what he is, a tyrant. Defend the Second Amendment with our top seller Come and Take It t-shirts. And look at that, women's cut tank tops and t-shirts now available. Nice hat. Plus the Don't Tread on Me flag. And now you can become a micro distributor of the InfoWars magazine. Plus, get your own copy delivered right to your door each and every month. And if you're tired like I am of you and your family being exposed to polluted drinking water, get the Pro One high performance water filter. It gets rid of all pathogenic bacteria, cyst, fluoride, heavy metals, and numerous other contaminants. So join the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
Professor Griff of pgriff.info, founder of Public Enemy, their Minister of Information, touring the country, about to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here very, very soon. And he joins us right now. I promise we'll get to your calls in the next segment. He'll go with us a little bit in the next hour. He's been gracious to do that. He's speaking to a university after that at, I guess, 3, so he's got some time. I haven't even asked him where he's at right now. Griff, where are you right now?
Right now I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, at Missouri Western State University.
You're in Missouri. Awesome. There's a little bit of echo on your phone now. Do me a favor and try to talk right into the receiver.
Oh, okay. Is this better?
Yeah, it's a little muffled, but it's okay. Just keep rolling with this key knowledge from Dr. John Coleman. This is real info that you're laying out, and I'd forgotten about it because it's 20 years old, and it's all coming true. Keep going.
Well, let's start at number 9. Number 9, to cause by means of limited wars in the advanced countries, by means of starvation and disease in the third world countries, the death of 3 billion, that's B, billion people by the 2050. People they call useless eaters. As you and I talked about, this is not useless black eaters. This is not useless white eaters. These are useless eaters, period. Because they're not going to differentiate between you and I. All right, so useless eaters. The Committee of 300, the Illuminati Commission by Cyrus Vance, to write a paper on this subject of how to bring about such genocide. The paper was produced under the title Global 2000 Report. And this is very critical. Under the accepted and approved by the actions of the former President James Earl Carter. This is very critical. And we need to note here, Zbigniew Brzezinski was involved, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Number 10, to weaken the moral fiber of the nation and to demoralize workers in the labor class by creating mass unemployment. And not only unemployment, but underemployment, to the point where you're not going to be qualified because of the advanced technology dealing with robots. You're not going to be qualified to get a job. You're going to be unemployable. As jobs dwindle due to the post-industrial sustainable growth policies introduced by the Club of Rome. Here's the Club of Rome once again. These people plan to put this in effect, and they've been doing it through institutions like Stanford Research and Tavistock Institute, as I mentioned in my lecture. Skipping down to number 11, to keep people everywhere from deciding their own destinies by means of one created crisis after another, and then managing such crisis. We talked last time about the Hegelian dialectic principle. We talked about this system that we're under, this two-party system, two wings of the same damn bird. I call them the Republicrats, the Republicans and the Democrats, all controlled by the same people. And then they manage these particular crises. I believe it was David Rockefeller who said we're on the verge of a global transformation. And all we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the New World Order. This is David Rockefeller.
You're right, the right catalyzing event, and the nations will beg for the New World Order.
Exactly. So as the left challenges the right and squeeze everybody in the middle, and then we scream out for help, and we scream to the government gives us the plan that they set in motion from the very outstart. They control both sides. This is why Ron Paul and other people that brought up issues were dangerous to this particular system unless they was paid and bought off and made promises that they never planned to keep. So number 12, to introduce new cults and continue to boost those already functioning, which include rock music gangsters, they call them. And then this is where Tavistock Institute comes into play because of what they set in motion with music and vibratory frequencies and tones and what they plan to do to demoralize young people's morals, to dehumanize young people with listening to music. They even said this in documents that they have laid out.
And by the way, he on record worked for British intelligence. On record. I mean, it's on record. And he was told this there. That's how he knew this when he wrote the Committee of 300. It's got to be more than 20 years ago.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, man. I've totally forgotten about Dr. Michael Kaufman, or Coleman. There's also Dr. Michael Kaufman, who we've had on to expose Agenda 21. Dr. John Coleman, you can watch videos of him online. Just type in his name. In fact, we ought to do some excerpts on the nightly news. Admit that their final revolution attacks humans from all sides. See, people are like, well, why does the government run Al-Qaeda? But Al-Qaeda is also killing us. They just finance gangster leaders. Brzezinski's written like 3 books just calling it gangsterism. That's what Professor Griff had just gotten to, where it's criminals. And the heads of Al-Qaeda are just criminals, not the guys they say they're killing. And most of the time, they're not even really killing them in drone strikes. They're doing drone strikes that's come out just to make the Pakistani people revolt and take over the government and put radicals in. I mean, it's sophisticated, folks. They flew tens of thousands of Taliban and Al-Qaeda out of Afghanistan. Our government did, into Pakistan. That was even in the Financial Times of London. Nobody got in trouble for it. We're going to go back to Professor Griff, and I promise he's on to take your calls. He'll graciously stay with us some into the next hour before Dr. Steve Pachinik, former head of Black Ops for the State Department and psychological warfare, who said the bin Laden thing was fake. Now mainstream news is coming out admitting there's like 3, 4, 5 different versions of that. He'll be on the last 30 minutes. Okay, Professor Griff, I want to go to these calls, but I'm telling you, you're laying out such hardcore info that I remember reading The Goals of the Illuminati 20 years ago and knowing how accurate it was and interviewing Coleman so many times. And then now it's all coming true, but now it's out in the open. It's like the headlines are what he talks about. So finish up with those points, and then let's go to the phone calls.
I'm going to move real quick. 13, to continue to build up the cult of Christian fundamentalism, beginning by the British East Indian Company. 14, to press for the spread of religious cults such as the Muslim Brotherhood. That sounds familiar. Didn't we hear about them a few years ago? And this document was written 20-something years ago?
And British intel created them, yeah.
Exactly. 15, to export religious liberation ideas around the world so as to undermine all existing religions. 16, to cause a total collapse of the world's economy. We're going to get back to that one. I have something to say about that, especially dealing with America. To take control of all foreign and domestic policies of the United States. To give the fullest support to, 18, to give the fullest support to supranational institutions such as the United Nations. The IMF, International Monetary Fund, excuse me, that was a Freudian slip. The Bank of International Settlements and World Courts. 19, to penetrate and subvert all governments and work from within to destroy sovereignty and sovereign integrity of the nation. 20, we're almost at the end, to organize a worldwide terrorist apparatus and to negotiate with terrorists whenever terrorist activities take place. Last but not least, to take control of education in America with the intent and purpose of utterly and completely destroying it. Those are the 21 goals written by Dr. Coleman in the book Committee of 300, dealing with the 21 goals of the Illuminati.
That's right, and everybody should get that book. I think it's still available. We should carry it. I mean, I read it close to 20 years ago, I think about 96 or so. And people also need to, it's up at educate-yourself.org. They've got a link to some of the text. We're going to mirror it over at Infowars.com. Don Salazar is posting it right now on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com because absolutely that is such key information that you pulled out of the memory hole here today, Professor Griff. You wanted to go back to a few of the points in there, and then we'll go to calls.
Let me just say this one last thing. Give me 30 seconds. There was an essay written by a young lady named Nicole Terry. Hopefully she's listening and she doesn't mind us pulling her work up. Essay is explaining what has happened to this world. She said, what would happen to someone who played a major role in the discovery and publication of the following facts? Number one, the IRS is not a U.S. government agency. Number two, the IMF is an agency of the UN. Number three, the U.S. had not had a treasury since 1921. Number four, the U.S. Treasury is now the IMF. 5, the United States does not have any employees because it is no longer a United States. 6, the alphabet boys, the FCC, CIA, FBI, NASA, and the rest of the alphabet gangs were never part of the United States to begin with. 7, the Social Security numbers are issued through the UN, through the IMF. 8, there are no judicial courts in America because there has not been since 1789. 9, there have not been any judges in America since 1789. 11, we have one world government, one law, one world monetary system. 12, the UN is a one world super government. There's 21 of them, but I want to stop right there and take the callers' calls.
Sure, and you're going to say a little bit with us in the next hour so you can lay out more knowledge for people, but briefly, and then we will go to calls. We have an article at Infowars.com, robo-reporters to replace mainstream journalists. So now the government corporation puts out a press release, a robo-writer re-scrambles it, but it's the same propaganda, and then puts a fake name on it. They're going to have nom de plumes, pen names, and then they're going to just get rid of the little government repeaters that just repeat whatever the government says anyway. I mean, this is crazy. If you notice now, they're even now saying we may not even have press conferences anymore. We may have a virtual president where it's a hologram. I mean, they are overthrowing reality. This thing is now starting to move really quick, Professor Griff. What's your take on the whole technocracy?
I think it's almost mind-numbing simply because I watched this gentleman, Will I Am, of the group Black Eyed Peas, support and write songs and this kind of thing for Barack Obama. He even admitted that because of the hologram, he ended up in 4 and 5 different locations at one time. Shortly after that, they did a concert, I believe, at Coachella, and they brought Tupac out on the stage via the hologram. And this blew a lot of people away. And then they even admitted in certain documents on the internet that they were going to start having hologram concerts. Where you could see Otis Redding and Whitney Houston and Heavy D and some of the other artists that have transitioned and passed on. Now we can see them now in concert by a hologram. It is mind-numbing, simply because a lot of people that I talk to on a daily basis, that's the young people, they don't know reality from non-reality. A lot of people's non-reality has become their reality. If an artist sits in the studio and crafts a song, just a song that comes out of his imagination, by the time it hits the sacred airwaves and the video comes out, a young person listening to that particular song views that as their reality. But it's not real.
Most people I know now, when you go to the Target or any store, it's all about virtual reality, these games. People pay money to have a Ferrari in an imaginary world. They pay to have a girlfriend. And then people actually start worshiping them with a status because they have the illusion this is the Wizard of Oz world eating the real world.
Yes. Yes. I asked the question earlier, does art imitate life or does life imitate art?
And we know they're using artificial art to then create the life they want. They're feedback looping us. They're force feeding us all this.
Exactly.
And the truth is that people watch my breakdown of Prometheus. They really believe they are the descendants of aliens and that we're the profane and have to be exterminated. It's just all so bizarre. And whether it's real or not, folks, they believe it. They're crazy. They're in charge because we stand down and let them rule. Because we don't have this arrogant desire to dominate everything. So, wow, heavy show today. So glad to have Professor Griff here with us. Mike in Oregon, got a lot of great questions here. Mike, Freddie, James, Boren, Vitold. We're going to get to all of you. Mike, you're on the air with Professor Griff. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me today.
You bet, buddy. Go ahead.
Oh, on the holographic subject, I thought that was funny. They're probably going to have like an Obama one Kenobi type deal where it like tells you when to turn on and off the lights, tells you what to eat and whatnot. You think?
No, that's actually THX 1138 is off of Brave New World, which Aldous Huxley said is their actual plan. So go watch that George Lucas 1973 film with Robert Duvall, and that's what they're planning, if you're lucky.
Wow. Oh, and the video game subject with the violent video games, I was reading somewhere the high schools and the middle schools want to get a poll of all the kids using video games, and then they want to put them on like an anger management type program, saying that they all could potentially be Adam Lanzas, and that we all needed to get them hooked on psychotropics and all sorts of stuff.
No, I hear you. Let's get Professor Griff's take on that. Yeah, the public, they're saying they're going to put the so-called Colorado shooter on truth serum to make him tell the truth when that's actually what you use to mind control him. And the guy's under a DARPA mind control program, just like it's admitted that the Unabomber, Theodore Kaczynski, was in MK-Ultra. I mean, that's in the LA Times, and then no one says, hey, we should investigate if he was mind control, and then they assign the same mind control doctor, the second most famous in world history, to be McVeigh's doctor. I mean, it's all hidden in plain view. Professor Griff, 10 years ago we talked about al-Qaeda being globalist run. Now they just admit it. Well, why do you think they're just coming out in the open with everything?
I think simply because the plan that they set in motion have set up its base already in the hearts and the minds of the people. We're at the phase of this thing where the people are crying out and clamoring for this whole idea of change. This is one of the reasons why the Obama Deception 2 is very important, simply because now we get a chance to come back and let the people know, look, we said this and started doing this prior to Obama becoming president. Look at what's been going on. Look what is going on right now, so that we can lay out the plan, what's about to happen. And if people don't want to go along with it and believe it, listen, that's on them. This is what's been laid out by people that are watching this thing, and
that's right.
And no one understands.
That's right. This is a fact. Whether people act like that's your opinion. No. I mean, if you jump off a 1,000-foot cliff without a parachute, you're going to die. This is what we're saying here is not our opinion. The globalists are bragging. We're telling you what's public. That's what's so frustrating. It drives me crazy.
Exactly. And this next quote is very, very public. November 17, 2008. He said, I once put it rather bluntly, and I was flattered that the British Home Secretary repeated this as follows. Namely, in earlier times, it is easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people. He said it's easier to kill than to control. This is the big new Brzezinski.
He put that out in his new book. That's in his new book. I read most of it. I scanned through it. It's a big book that came out about 6 months ago. And he says the people are waking up. This may upset our plan. And he's not just saying that playing possum. The good news is we've pushed him back about 10 years, ladies and gentlemen. And if you just believe we can beat them, and if we just figure out their divide and conquer, we can come together and beat this thing. Let's talk to Sally in California. Then we're going to go to Freddie and others. Sally, you're on the air with Professor Griff. Go ahead.
Yes. I have a question with Dr. Griff. How to get African Americans more involved in New World Order?
I think what we need to do is have courage enough to speak truth to power. I think we need to tap into the great me instead of worrying about the little me things. I think we need to do things that resonate with African Americans, that resonate with Black people and speak their language. Public Enemy has done that particular work. And I think this is why it was the people that voted for Public Enemy to go into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We did it via hip-hop because that's the vibratory frequency that we felt we could use, the medium that we could use to reach Black people. Now, we can call all we want to. Whether people come or not, that is entirely up to the people. Speaking truth to power, as Alex Jones will tell you, is definitely not an easy thing, but we don't mind doing it. There's a price to be paid for this. Are you following me? James Brown said people are talking loud, but they ain't saying nothing. And it's very critical that you speak a person's language. If you go to speak to our Latino brothers and sisters, you have to be able to speak their language to resonate with them. If you're going to speak to African Americans, I mean, we're all over the place. We have to be able to speak the language and speak truth to power.
Well, I've actually found statistically Black folks are easier to wake up to the New World Order than probably any other group because they've already been shafted so much in it, and they recognize what the system they've already seen. But like everybody else, they'll go, yeah, I get it's bad, but I still like Obama because it makes me feel good. They choose to go back into the matrix.
Exactly, and the reason why, Alex, simply because we've been fed this feel-good serum for a minute, simply because that's what goes on every Sunday in the Black community. It's a feel-good kind of thing. With 1 or 2 commercials and a couple of songs by a couple of corny rappers, it's a wrap.
All right, Sally, thank you. Let's jam in one more, and we'll come back after the break and get more into this. Let's talk to Freddie in Texas. Well, let's do this after the break. He wants to have a question. Get your opinion on Louis Farrakhan, so we'll get that. Selena wants to talk about the Koch brothers. Michael Paul or Michelle Paul wants to talk about populations. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. Professor Griff is our guest. Excellent website, pgriff.info, and he is keeping it real, as they say. That's my only goal. Be real. And I know what's real. Got a bunch of mad scientists who think they're God and are going to become God, running things. And they're jacking my food, my water. They're trying to force GMO on me and my babies. And, man, I just am freaked out. And we've got to get everybody awake to this to figure out some way forward. The problem is they know our nature. They know how to punch our buttons. We've got to get outside the box and realize we're being gamed. Professor Griff has been a soldier long before I was trying to do that. We'll be right back with Professor Griff. ProPure is introducing Pro One. All of your filtration in one system, portable, on the go. This is the Pro One by ProPure. You wanted it, you got it. No more do you have 2 or 3 filters to just reduce sodium fluoride. You have a system that cuts out the sodium fluoride and up to 95% of hydrofluorosilicic acid. Advanced manufacturing technology combines silver-impregnated white ceramic with new Aquamedics advanced media for removal of fluoride and other heavy metals, all in one filter element. It cuts out the acid derivative of fluoride. It is the only one that does it, and out of the gates, we have it discounted at 10% off with promo code WATER. This is the only system that in one unit helps reduce or remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, ammonia, and chlorine, hydrofluorosilicic acid, the most common form of fluoride not covered by other fluoride filter brands, and sodium hexafluorosilicate. This is a revolution against the tyrants. They love putting the toxic acid base of fluoride into your water. They love the fact that it's an adjuvant supercharging the trace Prozac in the water and the hormones and the other chemicals. By cutting out fluoride, you cut out the turbocharger in all the poison being artificially introduced into your body. This is what I use. It's a win-win. You get a high-quality product at the lowest price. You support the InfoWar. Get your Pro Pure with the new Pro 1 filter today at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling 888-253-3139. You know, recently Louis Farrakhan said some nice things about me. And you know, Louis Farrakhan, growing up hearing him, he says a lot of stuff I totally agree with, exposed to the Federal Reserve, other stuff. Gets off into some other areas, you know, that I don't totally agree with. But all I care about is that he's telling people don't be on drugs and don't trust the government. And that sounds like common sense to me. But that's my view of Louis Farrakhan. I don't really follow a ton of what he's doing because I'm too busy. But let's get Professor Griff's take on, well, I mean, Freddie, you go ahead and ask the question. I just see it up there on the board, so I'm asking it for you. Freddie, go ahead. Ask your question.
Thank you, Alex, and I love you, man. I'm a black man saying to you, a lover of Farrakhan. I love you as a black man to a white man because Jesus' disciples came to him one day, and he asked him, when his mom and brothers wanted to speak to him, he said, who are my mothers and who are my brothers? And Jesus said, those who adhere to the word of God and put it into practice. And you more of a brother as a white man because you stand for truth, and you willing to speak truth to power more so than members of my own family who don't do that. But I just want to.
Well, I just want justice, and I know they're shooting people up with cancer viruses, and if I don't fight that, I'm signing on to it. Do you have a question for Professor Griff?
I want to ask Professor Griff, what do you think of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan yourself? And again, I agree with speaking the language of our people. Could you give me a couple of specifics? Because I'm about reaching our young people with this. And
Sure. Great question, Freddie. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, Professor Griff.
Well, that's a very, very broad general statement. That's a show within inside of itself. There's so many things I could say, but I think the one thing that kind of hits home for me in reference to Minister Louis Farrakhan is the fact that I was that average kid in the hood, in the street, getting into all kind of trouble, doing all kind of things. But I heard this brother speaking truth, power, which drew me to the Nation of Islam, and I became a disciplined, studious, caring father, brother, uncle, just all around good human being. After going through the process of the FOI, which is the fruit of Islam, the military training of men that belong to Islam, North America. That's what I have.
All right, there goes your question answered right there. Let's jam in one more before this hour ends. Okay, let's go to Nick in California. Go ahead, Nick. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, I was calling about the Common Core education, where the government's trying to control the education, and you were talking about Dr. Coleman and the 21 plan.
Yes.
Did you hear me?
Man, you're on the air. Can you hear me? We're having a little bit of phone trouble.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Sir, I can hear you.
Okay, I was calling about the...
I heard you.
The Common Core plan.
Yeah, the whole Agenda 21, you notice there's 21 goals, and he was in MI6 and exposed it more than 20 years ago because he thought it was such a horrible plan. Professor Griff is our guest, one of the founders of one of the top hip-hop rap groups ever, Public Enemy. pgriff.info is the website. Going to your phone calls right now, and I wasn't trying to chastise the last caller, but I mean, you can hear the radio in the background. It's like, we want to hear you. And it's just, I've been doing rock radio almost 18 years. It drives me crazy. Let's talk to Michael Paul in Nebraska. You're on the air with Professor Griff. Go ahead. What's your question?
I guess my question was about solutions. What do you think we could do to, try and remedy this as quickly as possible?
As quick as possible, I think it starts right here on the Alex Jones Show with dialogue. And this is what I said the last time. It did not work with this particular gentleman and this medium. You and I would probably, we don't operate in the same circle. You and I would never have this dialogue. Simply because if the plan and the agenda is working and it's being carried out, it's designed for you and I to be at odds with one another.
Oh, they admit with Google now, it makes you go to your little group.
Exactly. So we can dialogue now, and we can come up with strategies and solutions. But can I tell you something, sir?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I would never get the plan over an open line like this. We have to sit in closed meetings, study groups, to come up with a plan to counteract the madness. Simply because we don't know who's listening to the Alex Jones Show. And I want to say to the government agents that are out there, thank y'all for tuning in. Also, really appreciate y'all for that.
Well, listen, we talked about that off air. It's a great question. Do you have any other questions?
No, sir.
God bless you. People ask me, what is your solution? And I give out a lot of individual solutions. But number one, wake up, snap your fingers, get out of the trance, look around you, don't believe us. People say, oh, I trust this person or I trust that person. Don't trust anybody. Verify, learn, see who you can really trust. It's not who's the fanciest or somebody says this guy's a bad guy and then there's no proof. That's all Cass Sunstein cognitive infiltration. We've got to come together and realize there's no future if we don't. Professor Griff, sure, go ahead.
Oh, no, that wasn't me.
I think the caller didn't get hung up on when I said thanks for the call. They just hung up.
But I think we need to recognize the fact that it's about the human family. And as they said in the movie New Jack City, we all we got. So I think it's the us against them kind of thing. And this has nothing to do with your complexion. And we need to understand that they're coming after us all.
They are rolling out with a technocracy on record to replace us with machines, saying they're going to kill all of us. And that's the big issue. That should be the big enemy. In fact, maybe the flag should be black people, white people, brown people, red people, whatever, like with clubs beating a robot into pieces. Like all of us in a circle beating the robot and the all-seeing eye into pieces. And it's not that the robot itself's bad. That's going to be its tool because it'll follow orders.
Right.
I mean, isn't that the unifying thing right there, Professor Griff, is to realize that, as you've said?
Right, I think, but that's what they're afraid of. So the plan is to create these false flags and false fronts to keep us at odds with one another. And we have to understand that. I spoke in my book, The Acapella Revolution, about the vote scam. Did I not catch hell? Because black people feel that, okay, well, we fought, bled, and died to have the right to vote. That doesn't necessarily mean the vote is going to work for you. We need to understand something. These people control both parties. Until there's a third party, and until we just kind of overhaul the government, just kind of get rid of it and start over again, it's not going to work for any of us because they control it.
Sure. Well, I mean, people ask for solutions. Solutions are getting awake, having dialogue, communicating with people, getting out of your comfort zone. They want you in a house, watching television, not even talking to your neighbors. You want to defeat the New World Order? Go ride a bike. You want to defeat the New World Order? Walk over to people that are different from you at a gas station and start warning them. I do that everywhere I go. My kids are like, oh, Dad, not again. I don't care. I go up and I warn everybody. We'll be right back.
Jakari Jackson here, and I want to talk to you for a second about water. You know about ProPure, our flagship water purification system, but check out some of our portable water filter products at InfoWarsStore.com. The clearly filtered water pitcher. Also, for those of you on the go, we have the Athlete Edition filtered water bottle and the RAD Eliminator Pro filtered sports bottle that removes radiation. And keep in mind, we have replacement filters for all of these products. The ever-popular grab-and-go bag favorite, the Life Straw, the Crystal Quest shower filter system, and the Aquapod kit, great for mass storage of water. And while you're at the InfoWars shop, pick up a copy of our latest book, 31 Days to Survival. You can find all this and more at the InfoWarsStore.com. And don't forget, it's your support that funds our operation. Sign up for our free newsletter at InfoWars.com/newsletter.
We have now posted in the tile section at the top of Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com 21 goals of the Illuminati and the Committee of 300. And under it, the last interview I think I did 3-4 years ago with John Coleman, who was in British intelligence. And the last time I tried to get him on, he was ill and having to have surgery. I believe I'm going from memory, and so that's why we hadn't had him back on. I thought he was riding off into the sunset, but we should try to get him back on the show. Amazing information. Professor Griff was bringing that up today. I'm glad he did. It's very important. I want to take some final phone calls from Selena, David, Will, Mark, and Robert. Please have your question ready. But Professor Griff, you've got some more knowledge. Professor Griff, one of the founders of Public Enemy, being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, what is it, next month, joins us now. Professor Griff, again, here into the second hour of the interview with you, ahead of Dr. Pachinik joining us with new Bin Laden hoax information here in about 30 minutes. Break down that other information.
Well, I was trying to explain to people through my book, The Acapella Revolution. I wrote a song entitled Elvis Killed Kennedy. And in the song, I kind of tell a story on how it goes into these false stories that the media puts out, and then tracking these stories down and finding out the truth. And by the time this happens, you've wasted valuable time. So what I did in the book is I put the resources to let people know how we can kind of cut through the chase. I talked about the IMF enslavement of Black Africa. I talked about the United States prison population hits an all-time high. I'm talking about the same people that run and control the execs that put on high in the music industry also invest and have stock in private prisons. I talk about the prison industrial complex. I talk about fluoride, and we talk about HARP, and we talk about different things in this particular chapter dealing with Elvis Killed Kennedy. This is one of the methods, I think a few callers ago asked this question. This is one of the methods that we use to awaken the masses of the people. What better way to do it than to educate them through entertainment, as KRS once said, who coined the phrase edutainment. This is one of the ways that we use to kind of wake up the masses of the people. It has to be put in a book form. It has to be put in an audio book. It has to be taught in universities, on and offline. This has to be the conversation at Starbucks or the average coffee shop. This has to be the conversation, these particular subjects that we bring up, not only on the Alex Jones show, but on other shows.
Very well said. Professor Griff is our guest. Let's take some calls. Selena in California. You're on the air with Professor Griff. Go ahead.
Hi, Professor Griff. My question was, I wanted to get your take on the Koch brothers, actually. How they pretty much fund America's for Prosperity, and how they're trying to destroy Social Security and segregate the schools, and pretty much they fund Obama, and I just wanted to get your take on them.
Anything that I could possibly say right now would be too premature.
Sherman, here's the deal. It's a meme that anybody that's pro-gun is a right-wing extremist racist funded by the Koch brothers. And the truth is they're a small Illuminati family spinoff, newer money, who one mafia group's about to basically push off the map. They've tried to take over conservatism as their own engine, and they're just a smaller mafia family. But we're actually doing a study on them because the entire fake left obsesses on them, and that's their conspiracy that they run the whole world. And so, I mean, it's true. David Knight was talking about being up in the Carolinas, living there, one of our reporters, and that all the major conservative groups he'd go to, meetings and stuff, it was like Koch brother people there, basically trying to take it over. So I've got him doing some research on that. I've been doing some research as well. So certainly they're involved in American conservatism. The original dad was part of the John Birch Society that, as far as I can tell, told a lot of true stuff about the New World Order and, got proven right. So for whatever reason, the Illuminati wants to shut them down. Doesn't mean they're good overall, but they don't want to give up their refineries and coal. Okay, so you've actually got the globalists want to shut off our energy to control us. That's why they block real alternative energy that Professor Griff was talking about. Professor Griff?
Yes, I would like to put my email address out there for me, because a lot of times when we are traveling, we don't have access. I mean, the internet is a beautiful thing, but a lot of times you need to touch and have communication with people. You need to talk to people face to face. When that question came up, I have a bomb of information, but I don't want to speak, too prematurely. So my email address is professorgriff@gmail.com. That's Professor Griff, PE, like public enemy, @gmail.com. And my phone number is 678-557-2919. I would definitely love to have people send me this particular information. You know what I noticed? When I'm in communication with the people that I speak with from outside of the United States, the information is vastly different. And it takes sometimes longer to cross-reference, because a lot of times you don't want to get on the Alex Jones show just to sound intelligent and important, and your information is incorrect.
No, you're kicking butt, and we're having a dialogue, getting people thinking. That's half the battle. And I think it's important. I think by people saying I work for the Koch brothers and stuff, and almost creating like a schizophrenia out there, I think it's good, because then that makes me go research and realize there's a mafia battle going on. It's like, I'm not for Assad, but they're trying to knock him off. He didn't do anything. That's evil in Syria. Don't take him out. Just like I'm against starting a war with Russia. Doesn't mean I endorse Putin. Right. And it's the same thing. Why are they trying to shut down the Koch brothers? Why are they trying to eradicate them? And it just shows these. Why did Boris Berezovsky just get killed? I mean, clearly murdered the Russian oligarch. Because these globalists, one thing they do at the highest levels, they do occasionally knock each other off, and I think that's what's holding them back. In fact, Brzezinski's talked about that they've got to have unity, and thank God they don't have perfect unity. That's one thing holding them up. Let's talk to Mark in Oregon. Mark, you're on the air with Professor Griff. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark. You're on the air with Professor Griff. Okay, Mark is gone. Let's talk to Robert in California. You're on the air with Professor Griff.
Yes. How are you guys doing? My question for Professor Griff is mind control, and how the New World Order likes to play people off of each other, and also the new technology that actually emerged about 2 to 3 years ago concerning brain gate technology, and how possibly the New World Order is also using that against people, against off each other, and possibly against people in Congress.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it came out in the 70s. They were using all sorts of mind control projection systems on people in legislators. I mean, it's incredible how far we're down the rat hole on this. Professor Griff?
Yeah, let me ask you something, Alex. What was the name of the movie that came out? I think it was a little documentary film that they had talking about brain fingerprinting. And I think the information went into the fact that if you committed a crime, they were able to take you in, strap you to this machine, and read your brain waves to see whether or not that particular crime is still in your brain.
I forget the name of the movie, but I'm familiar with it. And it's also, they're all... No, Minority Report is pre-crime. This is after...
Paycheck. The movie, Ben Affleck's Paycheck, I believe.
That's right. They go in and use the laser to erase the memories.
Right.
It's Paycheck.
Right. We have to be very, very careful and not so narrow-minded as to think they have maybe 1 to 2 methods on pushing the whole mind control program on the masses of the people. It's done several different ways. And the way I present it in the psychological covert war on hip-hop is through the vibratory frequencies of music. Is what Stephen Jacobson in his book Mind Control in America talked about when he talked about double speak, when he talked about backward masking. It's done in several different ways. We could sit and watch TV for an hour, come up from off the couch playing Armchair Revolutionary, come up off the couch and not even know that we've been indoctrinated with certain things that fit in the
Oh, listen, I can
mind,
tell
and
when
now
it's
all you
going
need is a
on.
trigger.
Absolutely. I can tell when something's really programming. And that's why I said watch the Dark Knight series, be connected to shootings. Before, it was all connected to both of them. Before, I said that because I know when I get physically ill, watching trailers and looking, I can tell my brain just knows when it's being programmed, and it's everywhere. And then there's overt stuff where they the person that homeschools in every TV show is a terrorist or a racist or a criminal. I mean, there's open brainwashing and demonization, but there's also subliminal programming on record. Let's talk.
So to your caller, Robert, you need to probably just, what me and Alex was talking about off the air, just kind of come off the grid, unplug, get away from all electronics, all right, and just press the reset button. Press the Robert reset button from California.
We all went down, well, I mean, not we all, my son and Rob doing his son and my dad, we all took an RV down with Richard Reeves to Big Bend for 4 days. And the cell phones don't work there. There's no civilization. And I felt like heaven. And it's because there's no frequency pollution.
Right.
Like all I want to do is go back there. I'm tempted to go move there, but I can't run. Sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say, there's people right now that are listening that know how to align the chakras and cleanse the auric field. And I think that's what a lot of us need sometimes, especially if we're around these electronics all the time. These frequencies are bombarding the brain cells and the auric field.
Well, they admit cell phones actually rattle loose the DNA strands in your cells.
That's deep.
It cuts them in two. You know what? We've got to do 5 more minutes. Can you do 5 more minutes, Griff?
Yes, sir.
All right, Bob. Callers, I'm doing it for you. John's got a question about guns in Chicago. Also, we'll talk to folks in New York, Maryland, and that'll be it. John in Illinois, you want to talk about guns in Chicago. You're on the air. What's your question?
I just have a statement. Do you guys know that in Chicago they're closing the schools and they're forcing gangs into other gang school territories, and that's going to cause school shootings? I should know. I was convicted of a school shooting, taking a gun into school. I was tried in a 50,000-volt shock device of a crime I didn't commit. I was put in the Illinois prison system where they put me in the soy project where they tested the GMO soy on the prisoners.
Oh, yeah, that's killing them, yeah.
Yeah, so...
well, send me a story about what happened to you. Yeah, no, look at Chicago. They've taken the guns, so only the criminals and government have it, and it's a hellhole. I appreciate your call. Professor Griff, what's your take on that comment?
Well, you know something? I don't think they're ever going to get all of the guns that they think they're going to get out of the hands of the people. The total number of guns that Michael Moore said was now in America. Do you remember?
There's my number's 400 million.
400 million guns. And you're talking about banning a certain particular rifle or clip. It is ridiculous.
Well, bottom line, you notice the government's getting all these extra weapons, but they want mine. I'm telling you now, buy more guns, folks. And we need good people with guns. Davon in New York, you're on the air with Professor Griff. Go ahead.
Yes, I was calling because I was assaulted last week by the NYPD. They assaulted me and arrested me and claimed that I was resisting arrest. And my question was regarding what can we actually do to actually win against the NYPD, because they made a lot of lies on me.
Yeah, the NYPD is just legendarily bad. I've been arrested by them just peacefully protesting, and they were making stuff up. And it's just amazing that is a giant gang of, and they're not all bad, but the system is run by bad people on the top. Professor Griff, what do you do about that?
It's good people in a bad system, but we need to keep in mind that the police are not the power structure. The police is being used by the power structure. And with what we just went through, as far as young black men are concerned with this stop and frisk, is utterly ridiculous. I don't see why good white Americans didn't stand up, because, listen, it's black people today, but who is it tomorrow?
I've actually been stopped and frisked in 2004 at the RNC, walking down the street, and happened to our other guys. So you're right, they mainly do it to minorities, but now they're doing it exactly. They search cars randomly. It happens to my white friends in New York all the time. They just randomly do whatever they want now.
I tell people all the time, once they come get Professor Griff in the morning, guess what they coming for in the evening?
That's right. Absolutely. That's what Tony Brown always says. What they test in the black community, you better believe is coming to your... People, we talked about it before we went on air, how white people and folks think that they're part of the power structure, the Boule, Masonic black leaders. They all think they're part of the power structure. And I'm here to tell you, none of you are part of the power structure. What do you call that when you imagine you're running things when you aren't?
You might call it a tea party, but I'm not sure what you call it in scientific terms.
Elaborate on that, because you've got the Republican version of the Tea Party, and then you've got the Ron Paul version. But yeah, the establishment Tea Party?
No, I'm not talking about the establishment Tea Party. A lot of people, who is this Negro in the Tea Party, who thinks that these people, it's so funny that I can't even get it out, who thinks that these people accept him, and none of what these people are presenting will ever catapult him in the position that he feels he's going to be in. It's a trick. It's the yellow brick road syndrome, I call it. You end up at Oz, and you pull the curtain back, and this character, this little short, fat little character running everything. Who would have thought? So I think they're propping up the Tea Party, they're exacerbating the tensions between black and white for this ultimate racial showdown. They pretend like the bobbleheads and the talking heads pretend like the Democrats are versus the Republicans. They have the gun issue, they have the gay marriage issue, the abortion issue, and we're being force-fed not only the question, but we're being force-fed the answers and the solution.
Well said.
Being controlled by the same people.
Absolutely. That's a good way to end it. I'll say bye to you during the break. Come back with Dr. Steve Pachinik with big breaking news. Professor Griff has been our guest today. pgriff.info. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com. Professor Griff, thanks for coming on with us. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.